Good evening to everybody present here. My name is Amulya Raghavan and I am a second year BA student from Manipal Center for Humanities. And today I will be presenting my research on understanding morality through graphic narratives such as anime and manga. Art has always been a medium of expression, especially in times of unrest and revolutions. But does it help convey morality? Does it actually influence the way people think? My motivation for this project is very specific. Out of my own observations of ideas like gender, sexuality, morality, and the subsequent stereotypes that followed, I wanted to understand how it actually affects the way people think. Since it reinforces the same archetype we still hold about these ideas, it will be interesting to understand if people actually notice the stereotype or just brush it off as the artist's opinion. This topic helps us in understanding art as a medium of expression or propaganda, something that Japan is already familiar with. And it will also try to understand how it reaches the masses, and once it does reach the masses, how does it actually affect the way they think. Manga and anime are arguably Japan's most famous and important contemporary cultural creations. So to see how it plays out and finds itself in the everyday life of a person would be interesting to understand. The method of study incorporated in this paper is semiotic analysis, where I will be talking and explaining about certain pictures that I have carefully selected to help aid my understanding. My findings have been in three broad categories, namely the history of manga, the morality aspects of manga, and the gender representations in manga and anime. With these categories, I have analyzed 2 manga and 1 anime. For the history of manga, I am looking at Hokusai's manga. Hokusai was a 19th century artist who drew random sketches of the things that he saw every day, but he depicted it with a kind of artistic realism that was relatively new at that time. His disciples later would go on to format the random sketches that he drew as a succession of images to invoke meaning. In the second category, the morality aspects of manga, I will be looking at the most popular anime or manga of all time, Death Note. This series is known for challenging the aspects of what is actually good and evil by placing the protagonist Light Yagami in a character that allows him the power to kill anyone with a method as simple as writing their names in a book called the Death Note. This series follows his idea of good and bad and how he ultimately abuses that power and spirals into a proper antagonist, although this part is still debatable. For the gender representation aspect, while I do discuss briefly on the stereotypical portrayals of males, the hypermasculinity part, and the females, the damsel in distress, the airhead tropes, and the spineless tropes, I will be looking at a very popular anime called Yuri on Ice, which involves an LGBT couple who are not subject to the usual stereotypes. The male characters subvert all traditional masculine tropes, break heteronormativity, and use gender-neutral clothing. An interesting point to note is that it did not cause controversy. When first introduced to a manga or anime, we look at the kind of characters who will take on the role of taking the plot forward. More often than not, the art is a representation of ideas that the society holds and enforces, so they will typically focus on the more stereotypical portrayals of these characters. Once in a while, we do encounter animes and mangas such as Yuri on Ice, but they often end up getting overshadowed or are not paid enough attention. When Yuri on Ice broke out, it was interesting to see how it actually challenged the people's views of the LGBTQ community, the multiculturalism it portrayed, and gender, and how it still ended up becoming such a successful series that doesn't use these concepts as tokens for the sake of representation. With Yuri on Ice in the front of this genre, we can attribute to how it broke through the stereotypes of the LGBTQ community, the multicultural characters, and sexuality by representing them in a positive and normal light. Since the author uses figure skating as the central sport, the characters tend to have more freedom to get in touch with their feminine side without any kind of inhibitions, since they are very comfortable with it. This marks the beginning of proper representation in anime and manga, and expanding the possibilities of positive representations of such characters in the near future. Thank you.